Hi, I'm Jade, and today we're having a little WIP and chat. Okay, this is my first time doing... Actually, I think I have done a WIP and chat. This is the first time that I feel like anybody's actually gonna see it. And I want to apologize for my AC. It's pretty loud, but it is far too hot in California not to have the AC on. It is, I think, 105 where I am today. And I can't handle heat, so I gotta have that on. I will try and edit it to be quieter, but it is what it is. So today I am finishing. This is the very last section of my Diamond Art Club old shoe house, and it is just this mushroom. I saved it because this was my favorite part when I saw the painting in the first place. And I wanted to save it for last because it would give me the motivation to actually finish. So that's what we're doing. And these are all the colors that go into this. I have the other colors over here, but I know I won't need them. So I'm nervous, but let's get started. Okay, so I did ask on my Instagram what you guys would like to hear me talk about, because I think I just did random answering questions on my first one, and I didn't like how that came out, but I still posted it. So I asked if you guys wanted to hear my ghost encounters / experiences, or if you guys wanted to hear about my synesthesia. Now, I'm still going to talk about my ghost stories eventually, but talking about my synesthesia actually went out on the poll, or the question, because I think it was a poll. Anyway, so let me pick my first color. I'm gonna start from left to right because that's always what I do. And sorry if the video is a little shaky. I'm on a card table, and you're on a tripod on the table. So I mean, it is what it is. So let's see. Let's start with S. And if this is under an hour by the time I'm done, then I might start kidding down, because I want my WIP and chats to be around an hour, because personally, I like watching WIP and chats that are around an hour, because I hate having to choose something new to listen to. But that could just be me. So, about my synesthesia. For those of you who don't know what synesthesia is, it is essentially when two of your senses combine. So, like a lot of musicians have synesthesia where they can hear color. And some people, can feel sound or things like that. The type I have, which I didn't realize that it wasn't a thing that everybody had until much later. But the kind I have is I can feel, physically feel color sometimes. It's not 100% of the time. It's not like I touch this table and I'm like, it's yellow, girl. It's not always very obvious, I suppose. So the first time I remember, so I sliced my head open when I was 4. So if you guys want to hear about that, or all of the all of the accidents I've been in when I was a child, because girl, I was accident prone. I got hit by a car, I sliced my head open, sliced my thigh open. I got all kinds of issues. Anyway, what was I saying? I know okay, so the first time I had an experience with my synesthesia is I was getting numbing shots in my scalp, not skull, because I don't think you can put a shot into a bone. But they were putting numbing shots into my scalp before they put staples in, and they told me close my eyes because, I couldn't see it was on the side of my head, but they said it would calm me down, which I wasn't really freaking out, strangely enough. And I was just sitting there, and I could feel like the needle going in and everything. But as the liquid was like being shot into my head, I felt everything become yellow with little black like dashes. And I know it's not going to sound right to anybody who doesn't have synesthesia or doesn't have like my type of synesthesia. And honestly, I haven't met anybody with my type of synesthesia. I've heard of people with the kind where they can hear color. And I might edit some photos up to say what I'm like, to show you pictures of what things feel like. And I know it doesn't make sense, but it does to me. And sometimes, like, getting physically touched feels a certain way. Like, say I'm being somewhat romantic with my husband, it's like a deep green with yellow swirls, like almost like smoke. And when I get my back cracked, it's like it feels, I don't know how to verbally explain it because it's so strange, but it's like a red and orange explosion, and I don't like that one. It makes me very uncomfortable. But it comes at random times, and it's usually, I notice it more when I have my eyes closed. I don't know if I can sense that when my eyes are open, because as far as I can recall, hi Corny, as far as I can recall, I don't remember there being one where I had my eyes open and I felt it. So, you know, like when you hug someone, sometimes you close your eyes. When you're cuddling with someone, your eyes are closed. When you get a shot, your eyes are closed. When you get your back cracked, for me, I close my eyes. So I've been trying to experiment with that lately, and I notice, I think that's part of the reason why I have trouble sleeping a lot of the time, is when I close my eyes to go to bed, like, it's not just black. It's like, almost like a night sky with fireworks, except, like, they're not, like, kabooming everywhere. It's like, there's swirls of colors, and, like, my legs feel red, like, in the pit of my knee, and I think it's because, like, I get overheated really easily, and, I mean, that's what I feel. So, I have a hard time sleeping because and then every time my husband, he'll, like, flip around in his sleep, and it just feels like blue, like, wiggles, like, squiggles, like, I know I'm saying like a lot, because it's like, I'm not sure how to fully explain it, but it's really interesting when you talk to other people with synesthesia, because, like, nobody experiences it the same, and mine isn't very often. Like, some people, it's like every time they hear a noise, like, there's a color in their mind associated with it. For me, it's not like that. Like I said, it's pretty much like my eyes have to be closed for me to really, like, I feel colors a lot of the time, but it's not like I'm not conscious of it or as aware of it when my eyes are open, because, you know, I'm having that visual color come in. Like, sunlight feels yellow, but, like, is that just because I've seen it be yellow? I don't know. And I don't know, just, it's strange. this is a very short subject because I'm not sure what else to say about it. Well, I guess I'll tell you about when I sliced my head open. Don't worry, it's not too gory or anything. There wasn't, like, blood everywhere or anything like that. But since that was what led me to find out about my synesthesia, although, like I said, I didn't find out until I was, like, in high school that, like, other people didn't experience things like that, and I was like, wait, what? I think I was watching a video about synesthesia, and I was like, not everyone has that? What? So, see, and I have a lot of early memories of feeling color, but I don't, like, they're not strong enough for me to remember what caused me to feel that specific color. So, anyway, when I was around 4, me, my brother, my sister, and my parents were visiting my grandma, and she had this house that pretty much, the kitchen led into the dining room, which led into the living room, which led into the hallway, which led back to the kitchen. So pretty much you could, like, go in a complete circle inside of her house. And most of her house was carpeted except for her kitchen. Now, me and my sister, being children, we were running around the house while my mom, my dad, and my grandma talked. And I had socks on, my sister didn't. So I wonder if you can tell where this is going. So, me and my sister, she was chasing me. And, you know, we were just playing tag, not a big deal. My brother was just chilling somewhere because he wasn't really, like, into tag and stuff like that. I loved running around. I was very... It's also why I got hit by a car. But we were running around in circles around the house, and we were doing it for a while, so, like, they didn't really, like, think anything bad was gonna happen. I mean, they had told us to walk, not run around. But, of course, like, we're children. I was 4, and my sister was 6. So, you know, how much are we really gonna listen when we're doing something that we think is fun? So we were running around in circles, and around, like, the 5th or 6th time that we ran around that part of the house, because it was a really small house. I think it was only, like, a tiny, small 2-bedroom house. And when we got to the kitchen, I think it was my turn chasing her at that point. She was running into the dining room, which had carpet, and she was going fast, so I wanted to go faster. And like I said, I was in socks, and I slid on the tile because, you know, you don't have the best traction wearing socks. And I sliced my head open on the bottom corner of, like, one of my grandma's kitchen cabinets, and they were wood. And we weren't even sure, like, how that could happen, but it did. So I had about, like, 1.5 to 2 inch slice into my head. And, I mean, it was bleeding, but I don't remember there being a lot of blood. I just remember my mom getting a clean towel and saying, "Hold it to your head." And my siblings ended up staying the night with my grandma because they were like, oh no, we're gonna have to deal with little baby Jade and her head. And I was and still am quite dramatic. I just have a very big personality. So they were like, why is she so calm? This is scary. But anyways, we went to the emergency room, and they had us wait there for like an hour, I think, before they even brought me in to get my staples. And I guess, like, because of the fact that, like, your scalp doesn't move very much, like, your muscles don't move, like, crazy intense. I wonder if you can, like, I don't think you'd be able to see it, but there's, like, a scar on the side of my head. And you can see it, like, if you're parting my hair a certain way. But anyway, we were in the emergency room, just chilling there waiting. I just remember being like, well, alright. This sucks. But I wasn't in much pain. Like, I knew I was bleeding, and I knew my mom looked stressed. I think my dad was, like, prepping the house or something for when I got home, because he figured, like, I'd need to, like, stay in bed with them. So, they finally called me up to, like, you know, go get my staples. Oh, what I was saying is that I think the reason they put staples instead of stitches in the scalp is because it doesn't move that much. I'm assuming. I ended up getting 12 staples in my head. So they take me into the little, like, side of the emergency room. Like, it was like a little room off to the side. They lay me on, like, a hospital bed, and they're like, close your eyes. And I just so distinctly remember, like, why does it feel like that? Because I had never felt, at that point, I don't remember ever feeling a color so intensely. And I was like, I think I even remember telling my mom, it feels yellow. And she was like, what? And I was thinking, like, because I was like, oh, maybe the liquid is dripping down my head and it's yellow, and for some reason I know. But it wasn't that, it was just synesthesia, baby. So it was really interesting, and I can't describe the feeling other than it felt yellow with little black lines. It was like, if you've ever, like, seen fiberglass, like, it was as if there was a yellow background with little black fiberglass strands in it, is what it felt like. And it was just very interesting. And my mom, she didn't understand what I was saying. She was like, okay. You know, you're not going to really be like, oh, my child feels color, like, or think anything of it, because it's not something that was commonly known either. This was, like, in the 90s. This was it had to have been, like, 98. Yeah, it was about, like, 1998. So, I don't know if that was even something that people discussed. Like, I know Jimi Hendrix had it. He had the kind where you can hear color. But I don't even know if that was talked about very much. So I just remember... And the staples, I don't remember feeling them at all. But I do remember the shot. As I said. Sorry if this is really boring. I'm, like, just recounting the life of 4-year-old Jade. So that was my first experience, and I mean, I got the staples out like 2 weeks later. It didn't hurt as bad as I thought it would. I do remember that I kept the staple, they like taped the staples they took out of my head to like a hospital like business card, and they were like, that way you can remember that you had 14 staples. Was it 12 or 14? I don't know. It was either 12 or 14. But I know when I look at my scar, it's about half an inch, or an inch and a half to 2 inches, like, long. And it was, like, a straight cut, so I think that's another reason why they didn't really feel the need to do stitches, because it's not like it was jagged. It was, like, very easily just stapled it together. So I had my head stapled shut, and that was interesting. I mean, I didn't realize how short of a story that was. So, give me a moment while I consider what to talk about now. You know, I think I'll just update you on things that I'm doing. So, for the past year, I guess it's a year and a half now, I've been writing a book, and the name might change, but it is called, wow, I don't remember what I called it. I think it's called Ashes. And I also have a screenplay that's half written, which I need to finish because my mom wants it finished because she wants to know what happens, even though I could easily tell her and just describe it to her. She said, no, I want you to write it down because torture, you know? You know what, actually I can talk about that instead of my book, because I want my book to, if I do another WIP and chat, that way I can, like, fully talk about that. So, in college, okay, so I have a literary arts degree, focusing in theater, and during that time, I found out that I really love writing, like stories, not just random things. And we had an assignment where we had to do something that was inspired by Oedipus Rex. And if you don't know what Oedipus Rex is, it's essentially like this fortune teller tells the king, hey, you are going to be killed by your son, and your son is going to marry your wife. And he's like, no way that's gonna happen. So when his son is born, he gives it, or he takes it to the countryside to have, I think, like a farmhand or somebody kill him. And the farmhand just sees this beautiful little baby who's perfect. He's like, I cannot, in good conscience, just yeet this baby off a cliff. I just can't. So he takes this baby to a close by kingdom because he knew that the royalty of that land, I could be getting some details wrong because it's been a while since, like, I listened to that screenplay, but he knows that this, like, royalty in this other land close by had difficulties conceiving children, and he was like, well, maybe they'll want the baby because I can't have the baby. So he goes, takes the baby to these people. They're like, yes, we will take this baby. And they love this baby, treat it like their own. They don't let the baby know that he was adopted or that he was found. He just thinks that this is his life. And I believe that the two, like, countries or towns or whatever it was in the story were fighting or something, and the old king was going out to try and fight for his land or something, and he meets his son that he doesn't know is his son because he thinks his child, he got rid of it. He doesn't realize that that could be him. And I believe on that route, the son murders the father. Obviously, they don't know that they are related. And he comes to take over the land. And like I said, I could be getting details wrong. But then when he comes to the land, he takes the queen to be his wife. And they have children. And obviously, they're doing things that adults do when they're married and or otherwise conjoined. And, you know, they raise their kids like nothing's a big deal. And then the oracle, which is like the fortune teller, is like, you will, I'm pretty sure he says, like, you kill your father, and he's like, I would never kill my father, because his father's the king in another place, and you are going to, like, marry your mother, or be physical with her. He's like, that's absurd, like, you make no sense. And then, I think something happens, and the farmhand is like, actually, you are, actually, this person's child, and you were just adopted by your mom and dad. And then he's like, what? And then I believe he tells the whole town, or wherever they are. And then the mom goes upstairs, and I believe she, like, unalives herself by, like, jumping out of a window or stabs herself. I don't know. I don't remember. And then, he's like, oh my god, this is horrendous. Like, I don't want to exist with this knowledge. And he gouges his own eyes out. And that's basically the story of Oedipus Rex. So, you know, if you've ever heard of, like, oh, he's got an Oedipus complex, it's like they, like, want to finagle their mother. So we just had to find some kind of inspiration from that and write a 20-page play, or maybe it was a 10 or 20-page play. And that means, like, it's like 10 minutes or 20 minutes. Like, per page, generally it takes about a minute to enact that on stage or say that. For whatever reason, the idea I got so excited and so into it, I ended up with an hour's worth written by the time I turned it in. And my playwright professor, he was like, whoa, okay. And since it was so long, he was like, I want you to read it for the class. Like, because, you know, we would, like, it wasn't just me. Like, he would say, does anybody want their story read to the class? Like, and you'd have, since, like, most of us were actors or, you know, in theater, like, usually people were willing to go up and, like, act out or read out whatever happened. And I was like, sure. Because, actually, I think I did turn in a 10-page one, and then out of 3 plays you wrote that semester, you had to choose one to make it longer into a 20-minute one. So you had to double the length, and I ended up making it an hour. And I remember my classmates really liked my, like, short version. So when it came to that, I remember, like, my classmates were like, we want to see, like, what you added to it. So the only real thing I took from Oedipus was I took an oracle giving a fortune, and I took something to do with eyes. So I'm going to give you a little synopsis, because we still have a while to go, because like I said, I like to be on here for about an hour. Either that or until I finish this mushroom. Either way, if I don't finish this mushroom by the time I'm done talking, I will show you at the end my finished canvas. Or maybe I'll just save it for, pardon me, for a post review, because this is the last section. Like, after this mushroom, I'm completely done with this painting, which is huge. It is 105 by 70 centimeters, so that is a big boy. You're a big boy. So anyway, I get distracted, as you can tell. So essentially the story, because I'm not going to read the script, because how am I going to do that while I'm diamond painting? So there's these 2 kids. Now, I might change them to be older or younger. I'm not sure what would fit better, if they're teenagers or if they're children. But essentially, they're playing, like, ball with a soccer ball outside in their neighborhood. You know, a fairly normal thing to do. But there is this house at the end of the street that is older, and it's, like, the oldest house in the neighborhood. And I know it sounds very cliche, but, like, not all stories have to be super original, just as long as, you know, it's original in some ways. Look at me getting self-conscious. So they end up kicking the ball into the neighbor's backyard. And they're like, oh God, we don't want to talk to him. Like, he is so creepy. He's like the blind guy, like, in the neighborhood, and he just looks so creepy. And why do his eyes always look all, like, crusty, like, they're not healed? Like, he's been blind forever. Why would his eyes still look like that? But nobody really comes close to him. And he's old. He's, like, in his 90s or so. But he's fairly spry for a 90-year-old, I'd say. I mean, I wrote him. I can make him whatever I want. So, the main protagonist is a girl named Morgan. I don't know why Morgan, names may change also. And her friend Guillermo. So, Guillermo's, like, antagonizing her, like, I bet you're too chicken to go get the ball. Like, you don't have the balls. Like, you're too scared, because she has always been creeped out by the neighbor, the blind neighbor. And she's like, I'm not afraid, like, I just don't like how he looks. And, you know, really she actually is very creeped out, but she doesn't want to seem like chicken in front of her best friend. So he's like, go ask, because you couldn't just go in the backyard. So she says, okay, like, I don't have to prove anything to you. And he's like, okay, well, I'll give you this thing that she wants if you're brave enough to go do it. And she's like, fine. So she goes up to his door, knocks on it, and he opens the door, and she just sees how fresh his, like, eye wounds are. Like, it looks like a fresh, semi-fresh incident that happened with his eyes. And nobody knows, like, in the neighborhood, like, if he had an accident, what happened. They just know that he's blind, because not everybody in the neighborhood was around when he was there. And it's a big house, just at the end of a cul-de-sac. And so she sees his eyes when he's like, hey, who's out there? And she's like, oh, it's me. Like, I live in your neighborhood. Me and my friend kicked a ball into your backyard. Can I please go get it? And she's, like, freaking out. She feels very uncomfortable. But he's like, you know what? The backyard's a mess. I'll go find it. And she's, like, in her head, like, dude, you're blind. Like, it's gonna take you forever. And she's like, no, it's okay. I can just go back there for a few seconds. He's like, no. You just come in here, sit on my couch, wait. I promise I will find it for you. So she goes inside, and all the lights are off. And she's like, well, he's blind. I'm not gonna make him feel uncomfortable by being like, can you turn on the light? Because, like, she just doesn't want to make him uncomfortable. So the house is fairly dark because the curtains are drawn, you know, and he doesn't really need those things. And he lives alone, so it's not like he's going to have those things on for other people. So she's sitting in a dimly lit room, just lit by, like, the, like, light coming from the sheer curtains. And it's dark, creepy. She's sitting there. She's like, oh God, it smells, like, weird in here. What does it smell like? And she's just thinking, like, she's like, geez, that smell is so strong. And, you know, the guy is taking forever to find her ball. And she's like, well, it's going to take him forever. I shouldn't complain, but, like, I don't want to be here. And she starts getting really uncomfortable. And she's like, that smells blood. That smells like blood. And she's like, what in the world? Why does it smell like blood? And she's like, you know, he is old. Maybe he has, like, health problems. Maybe whatever. You know, she's not trying to assume things. But then the back of her mind starts going, and she's like, oh my goodness, is he like a vampire? Like, is that why he lives in this creepy house at the end of the street? Like, why else would it smell like blood? Like, sure, he could have issues that make the house smell like that. Maybe he has other stuff. Maybe he's cooking, I don't know, but she starts thinking in the back of her head, maybe he's like, and then she's trying to like snap herself out of it. No, he's not a vampire. He's just a normal guy. Like, stop it. But he's taking a while, and she starts to get kind of anxious, and she's like squirming in her seat. And she's like, you know what? I'm just gonna go to his back door and like look out there to see if he's having issues. 'Cause, you know, whatever. So she starts heading down this hallway towards the back of the house. And she's like, it's dark, so she's kind of feeling around. She doesn't know where things are. And, you know, she's never been here. It's not like she knows where the backyard is. And she's like, okay, like, maybe it's in here, maybe it's here. She's feeling around. She gets in a closet. She's like, well, that's not where I want to go. And then she opens a door, and she like is like, well, maybe I can turn on a light somewhere so I can see where I'm going. And she turns on a light to a little bathroom that's, you know, just in the hallway. And she like walks in there so that she can like readjust her eyes, and then she can figure out what she's doing. And when she goes in there, she like notices on the counter that there is a pair of eyes sitting on the counter. They're just like, you know, with the back of them still attached, bloodshot, gross, you know? She's so shocked and startled. She like jumps back from the counter, and she like trips kind of into a shower curtain and falls backwards. And she falls into a bathtub, and the smell of blood and like rotting and nastiness has been getting stronger the whole time she was walking through the hallway. So she falls back, and she's like wrapped in the curtain, but she sees as it's like enveloping her that there's like squishy bloody stuff, and then she notices that it's like eyes at different levels of decomposition, and she's like screams because like that's horrifying, right? That's, you know? Hold on, I think I need one of these. Okay. So she's like, my lord, what is going on? Screams, she's freaking out. And the old man who lives there, he runs up, because I guess he was already, well, I mean, like, I know what's happening. He was on his way back inside, and that bathroom is close to the back door. So he comes to the bathroom because he's like, oh Jesus. And she just screams, get away from me, get away from me. And he's like, no, let me explain. And she, I mean, would you let a guy who has a bathtub full of rotting eyeballs explain anything to you? No, you'd get the heck out of Dodge. So she's like freaking out. She like gets on the floor and then crawls like past his legs because he can't really see what she's going, because he was going to try and block her in, and she could tell. So she like crawls past his legs, and she just dips, and she's like running down the street crying, and her friend Guillermo's waiting for her, and he's like, dude, what happened? Like, he's not that scary, like, he's just an old man. And she's like, you don't understand, you don't know what I saw. And he's like, you're overreacting, you're imagining things. And then she says what she sees, and he's like, I'm not believing that, like, you're imagining things, that did not happen. And she's like, bruh, it happened. And he's like, nah. And she's like, if my own best friend, who's like been close to me forever, doesn't believe me, then who the heck is going to, right? And she's crying, and he's like, well, like, you know. And she's like, I have to go back. I have to get proof. Like, nobody's going to believe me unless I get proof. Nobody's even going to go check. Because why would you? So he's like, dude, you seem really freaked out by this. Like, if you want to, like, I'll go with you to go and try and sneak, like, so you can show me. And she's like, well, okay, at least he's willing to see, but he still thinks that she's just imagining things or being dramatic. So she goes to sleep that night, and she has, like, a nightmare that, like, a guy's approaching her bed just with the shadow of a knife, just, like, about to strike. But really, it's just her best friend waking her up to say, no, you know, like, we can go figure this out together. So they're, like, figuring out a plan, and he really does not believe her. He thinks she's being dramatic or imagining things. So they make a plan that they were going to sneak out of their house, because he lived down the street, like on the same block as the old man. And they were like, okay, well, we'll sneak out when, you know, there's a good amount of moonlight, because he's not going to be able to see anyway. That way we can see more without making a bunch of noise. They sneak into his backyard. They, like, climb over his fence. My leg's falling asleep. Ugh. So they climb over his fence, and they go in through the backyard, or the back door, because she knows where that is now, and it would be, like, a lot less suspicious than trying to come in through the front door. So once they get in the backyard, she kind of sees why he wouldn't let her just go find the ball himself. It's like piles of just boxes and, you know, kind of like a hoarder situation. Like, he just collects everything, and there's just piles of boxes and stuff. And she's just like, okay, like, no wonder it took him so long, but also, he hiding bodies or something? Like, what is this? So they sneak in to the house, and she's like, I need to prove to my friend that this happened, because, like, I have to get somebody else, and I have to get pictures, or else I'm never gonna get the cops to believe me. Like, you know, because she's full on thinking, like, this old man is, like, a secret, like, serial killer, because, like, why would you have so many eyeballs? And they looked very much so human, so she's like, this dude's a murderer. He's gotta be. And she's like, yeah, like, that's gotta be controlled by the police somehow. Anyway, so she goes into the bathroom, and she pulls back the curtain. She's ready. And there's nothing behind there when she pulls it back. And her best friend's like, I told you you were imagining things, like, there couldn't have been something. And she realizes, like, wait, it doesn't smell in here right now. Like, not like it did. Like, I can smell blood in the house, but it's not, you know, as strong as it was. And she's like, he had to have hidden it. She notices that there's cleaning supplies all around the tub. And she's like, no. He just cleaned this up. This had to have just been cleaned up. And he's like, girl, like, let it go. Let's just go home. Like, how much trouble are we gonna get in if, like, we get caught sneaking into, like, an old blind guy's house, you know? She's like, I know it's in here somewhere. And she's, like, determined at this point. Because she's, honestly, she, like, has to prove it to herself. Because she's like, this had to have happened. I would not imagine something like this. So she, like, goes into the hallway, and she can hear the old man snoring in his room that's, like, kind of, like, across the hall. And it's, like, a 2-story house. And she's like, okay, I can smell the blood pretty strongly in the house still, but it's not coming from the same place. So she goes upstairs because she's following the scent, and her friend is like, dude, stop, like, we cannot go upstairs, we cannot be we're going through this guy's house, like, he's gonna wake up, like, you know, we can't be that quiet. And she's like, nope, I gotta do this. And he's, like, starting to get nauseous because he doesn't like the smell of blood. And all of this is much more clear. If you guys want me to ever, like, read the actual screenplay, like, I can. I don't know if you guys would be interested. But she goes upstairs, and she's, like, following the scent. And he's, like, throwing up in his mouth because he just cannot handle it. And he's, like, following her because he's like, well, I'm not gonna leave her. She's already, like, gone insane. I can't just let her be insane alone. Oh. So they go up to, like, the upstairs, and she's just trying to figure out where it smells the strongest. And now she's, like, so tuned into it, like, it's, like, easy almost. She's like, I've got to prove this. Hold on. I'm going to take a break real quick. Randomly got a bit tired. I don't know why. So, when she goes upstairs, she kind of figures out where the smell's coming from. And he's following her, but he is not having a good time. He's nauseous. He's, like, he's starting to believe her. Because, like, why would that smell be so strong, you know? And, you know, she's just following the smell. She finds this, like, little office that's at the end of the upstairs hallway. And she's like, it's gotta be in here. It has to, because, like, why else, like, would it smell so strong? But the office is completely empty except for this huge, like, vintage desk. Like, you know those big mahogany desks that they have at, like, law offices and stuff like that? Like that. But there's nothing in there. She looks through the drawers, she doesn't see anything. And then there's a small closet that's in the office. She looks in there, and the smell's stronger in there. But she still sees nothing. Like, there's nothing around. And she's looking at the little shelf in the closet, and she notices that the floor's kind of creaky. So she kind of pulls at the floorboards. And I know it's cliche, whatever. It's a first draft. Can't be too judgmental. So she pulls at the floorboard, and there's, like, a styrofoam, like, cooler. Like, you know those disposable coolers you can buy? And it's just wrapped in plastic wrap. And she's like, it's in there. I know it's in there. And he's like, dude, just, like, let's leave. Like, stop. And, you know, he was the one who was teasing her about not being brave. And he's over here being a chicken. I mean, rightfully so. I would not want to be in that situation. And she's just so hell-bent on, like, getting proof that I don't know what she has. She probably has, like, I think in the story, Guillermo carries a pocket knife. And she's like, give me your pocket knife. She starts cutting through the cellophane. And she opens it, and there is, like, gobs of, and there's not just one styrofoam container, there's like multiple, like shoved into the floorboards. And she's like, bingo. And Guillermo's like, okay, that's enough, like, get a picture, let's get out. And he's like really freaking out because he's like, well, now I know all of this stuff is true, and like he has to be like some kind of murderer or serial killer, because like, why would you have that? You know, how could you have that? And what she does is she takes out her phone and she like opens the camera because she's gonna take a picture proof so that she can, you know, have evidence for the police or whatever she's gonna do. But when she turns on her phone and opens her camera, it opens to front facing. And she sees the old man right behind her and Guillermo. She screams, tosses her phone, because, like, that's frightening, you know. And he was very silent, so they weren't expecting him to be there. And the phone hits the wall, and the battery pops out. If you've ever had a phone that, like, has, you know, you throw it, and it will immediately, the battery pops out, that's exactly what happens. I'm getting a little dry throat here. And they're freaking out. Guillermo passes out. This is like overload for him. He cannot handle himself. So she just like pulls him up and is like holding him against her chest on the floor with the little knife. She's like a small girl, and she's like with the knife, like, you better stay away. And he's like, let me just explain. The old man is saying, let me just explain. She's like, what do you gotta explain? Like, you're obviously a murderer. And he's like, no, like, it's a whole story. I promise. I'm not what you think I am. And she's like, yeah, like, I'll cut your ass. And then she notices, she's like, wait a minute. You have eyes. He had eyes back in his head. You know, this man, she's like seen multiple times, and he's never had eyes. His eyes look pretty much normal. Like, not like, you know, there was surgery to fix them, just like they were normal. And she's like, whoa, what the heck? What happened to your, like, eyes? And he's like, just let me explain and you'll know. And Guillermo comes to, and he's like, oh God, like, freaking out. And she's like, I'm giving you this much time to explain, old man. Hurry up. So, he starts explaining. And it kind of does, like, a flashback to, like, when he was younger. So this guy, the old man, when he was young, I think he named him Oscar. He was a complete douchebag. And he was gross to women. He was gross to, you know, everyone. He was just not a good guy. And he had recently lost a maid because he worked from his house, and he's like, I don't remember exactly what I made his occupation. It made sense, like, it makes sense where I actually wrote it, and all of this is just like off the top of my head. I have details that I'm sure I'm forgetting about, because yeah, I wrote it, but like this was 2 years ago. And he had recently lost his in-home maid because he tried to assault her. She hit him over the head with a crystal ashtray, so she a bad bitch. She wasn't going to handle that. So he put an ad out in the paper, because back in that time, that's what you did to get people to work. And he had a listing, you know, for a maid position. And this, like, older lady, also, he was, like, very vain, and, like, he wanted the person working for him, the maid, to be, like, eye candy. Because he was a perv. So this little old lady comes up to the door and is like, hey, like, I'm looking for a job. I really need help. Like, because it was mid-depression. I'm not sure exactly the timeline, so, like, forgive me on that. But I'm pretty sure I had said it, like, at that point, it was, like, during the Depression. And he was still wealthy during it, so, you know, people are going to be looking for jobs. Anyway. So she's like, please, I need help, like, please just give me a job. I promise I will do everything perfectly. And he's like, why the would I hire a ugly old lady to work for me when I could have some hot piece of ass, right? And he's like, no thanks, the job's filled, like, the position's already been taken. She's like, please, like, I know you can afford, like, more than one maid, like, just give me a chance. I can show you, like, how well I can work. And he's like, no. And obviously the position was not filled. So, a little while later, like, a beautiful woman comes, knocks on the door, and says, hey, I'm here for the maid position. And he's like, hell yeah, like, I'm gonna get it, right? And then she comes into his office, they're talking about the job and everything. And he turns around because he's about to, like, get something to drink, get her some wine, because he's like, oh, she's hot, and I want her to work for me, and I want to get some, right? So when he turns around to, you know, pour a drink, they're talking, and she's being all, like, flirty and stuff. He turns around, and it's the old lady, but with the young girl's voice. And he's like, oh, hot damn. Like, what the hell? And she basically, like, tells him that she gave him a chance to be a decent person and that he wasn't. And that she ends up, like, doing, like, an oracle telling, but in a cryptic way. She tells him, it's kind of like a rhyme or something that essentially says, like, you're like, once you find love, it's gonna go bad for you. And it's very specific, because I don't want to say, like, what it means, because then, you know, it takes away from later. So he's so freaked out, because he's like, this is a witch, this is something, like, I don't know what this is, but this is not good. And, ooh, I don't know if that's gonna be enough. DAC, don't fail me. Don't run out of drills, please. So he's so freaked out. And he, like, knows that something bad's gonna happen. He keeps thinking that this witch is gonna come back for him, because she leaves after she tells, like, basically her premonition. And he's, like, freaking out, because she, like, looked all creepy, and it's a whole thing. And then, so he kind of, like, becomes kind of a hermit. He's so freaked out and scared by what happened, because he never, like, thought anything like that existed, that he kind of becomes a hermit. And his best friend is like, come on, come drinking with me. And he's like, hell no, like, I can't be around women. They're scary, because they might be a witch like that lady. And he's like, dude, you're tripping. That didn't happen. And he's like, no, it did. But his friend's like, come on, just one night, like, come out with me to, like, this bar. But it's like a club bar type thing, you know? I don't know. And he's like, no, I'm scared. He's like, I promise you, nothing's gonna happen. So he convinces Oscar, which is the old man, to go to a bar with him. And he's freaked out, but he's like, okay, I'm going to try and calm down. Because it's been a year since the, like, witch oracle lady had scared him. He's like, okay, maybe I am just imagining part of it. Like, maybe it wasn't all that. But he's, like, still like, I'm not going to talk to any girls. They could be, like, witches in disguise. And he tells his friend that, like, okay, you better stay with me all night because, like, I ain't dealing with this alone. And he's like, yeah, sure, buddy, yeah. And, of course, his friend leaves him to go talk to a girl. And he's sitting at the bar, like, shaken up, nervous, just having a drink. And there's a girl at the bar, and she, like, talks to him, and she's like, your friend leave you too? And her friend is over there dancing, and his friend's over there talking to some girl. And he's like, yeah, and he's nervous, but something about her calms it down. Like, she just has a peaceful air about her. So, you know, they get to talking, and he actually really likes her. And he's like, well, okay, maybe as long as, like, I'm not a creep, bad things won't happen, and, you know, like, maybe that's what I needed, whatever. So they start talking, and they start hanging out, and they're actually, like, starting to fall for each other. And over a few months, like, him and this girl that he met at the bar get close. And he's really starting to fall for her. And he drops her off at at her house, and he decides to say I love you for the first time, right? And he does it, and then she's so excited. They kiss, and when they pull away from the kiss, he opens his eyes, and to him, it looks like everything around him is rotten and, like, gross, and she looks like a zombie. Like, her flesh is, like, rotting off her body, and he's, like, screams, and she's like, what's wrong? And she sounds normal, but, like, to him, she looks like basically a walking corpse that's, like, rotting away. And he's like, what? Like, freaking out, and he, like, runs to the car, and he's like, I'll talk to you later. And she's like, what in the world is going on? And then on his drive home, every, like, pedestrian he sees, they look like zombies. But everything's normal, but he sees everything, like, gross and rotten and nasty. And essentially what happened is the witch put a curse on him that as soon as he actually finds real love, he will be cursed to only see the, like, gross nastiness, because that's what he is. He's rotten, so he deserves to see. He doesn't deserve to be, like, a pervy dude who just, like, checks out girls and, like, you know, is bad. He has to see everything as, like, gross and decaying and everything. And him and this girl, like, they do love each other. They're, like, you know, they love each other. And after a few days, she notices, like, he hasn't talked to her, and this is unlike him at this point in their lives. And she comes to the house, and she's like, honey, like, you gotta open up, you gotta talk to me. And he's like, no, like, you know, being a big baby. And she's like, come on, we can work through this. Because, like, you know, they were in love with each other. And long story short, because I don't remember exactly all of this part. Like, I know I wrote it down. But he finally lets her in. And she's a nurse, by the way. And he tells her everything that happened with the witch. And she strangely believes him. And he's like, I can't, everything I see is awful. Like, I don't want to exist like this. Because even with his eyes shut, he sees it. He can't even just close his eyes. It's like almost like his eyelids have rotten away and he can see through them. But in reality, none of that's actually happening. It's just in his head. Like, he sees all that. So he comes up with the plan to take his own eyes out. And his now fiance, because, like, you know, they've been through a lot, so she's like, okay, I'll be with you. We'll be engaged. So she's a nurse, and she's like, I don't think it's a good idea. Like, we should not take your eyeballs out. And he's like, I have to. And she's a nurse, so she's like, well, I'm not going to let you do this, like, alone or, like, dangerously. So she helps him, and he removes his eyes for the first time. And for the first time in, like, a year, he feels peace. He's not horrified with these images of, like, death and rotting and crazy chaoticness. And he's so happy. And he feels like he can actually move on. And they spend the day together and everything. And he's like, okay, things are going to be better. Like, sure, I'm going to be blind, but that's much better than the alternative. And at least I have my girl. So they go to bed, and when he wakes up the next morning, his eyes have grown back and healed over, and he can see perfectly well again. But, you know, he's seeing all of the rotting and decay. And, you know, he's already come to terms with the fact that he's fine with being blind. And his wife or fiance sees, like, that happened, and he just freaks out on himself and starts gouging out his own eyes because he cannot handle that. But he realizes that the pain of taking them out is better than the mental torture of having to see that day in and day out. So, for the next however many years, him and his wife take out his eyes every morning. That's his cup of coffee. Eyes out in the morning, you know. Keeping an eye out for Selena. And then eventually, once they get older, probably like towards their 60s or 70s, his wife passes away. And when his wife passes away, he develops a sort of hoarding disorder. And, you know, when she was there, she'd properly dispose of everything. But it's like sorry, my camera battery got full. But essentially, at that point in the story, he gets pretty much to the point he is. For the next 20 years that he's alive without his wife, he is just a hoarder. He's kind because that's who he's learned to be. But he hasn't really had to interact with people because, I mean, people didn't want to be around him because he's scary looking. Which, like, the whole reason he got in the predicament is because he judged on looks. So it was kind of his just punishment. And he's, like, explaining this to the kids because, like, I mean, how are you going to explain that a guy's eyes grew back and all that? But that's as far as I've written. I know what's gonna happen, but that's as far as written. And if you guys want me to read the actual, like, because I'm telling you, it sounds a lot better. Like, I got a whole class of college students very interested in it, so I think it's entertaining. But obviously it's not going to be as nice hearing it like a secondhand kind of retelling from just my memory. Like, I'm not looking at it. But if you guys do want me to read the playwright or transcript or whatever you want to call it, let me know, because I'd totally be willing to do that. The only reason I haven't finished it is because, like, I don't have the motivation, because it's like, okay, but, like, if I do it, what do I do with it? You know? I don't know where to send it. I'm not very well versed in like what to do with that type of stuff. I've only dealt. Hi friends, just popping in here at the end. So my camera ran out of storage. Well, I've been recording my videos on my phone because it's easier just to upload them since they share an iCloud. However, I ran out of space, which was tragic. But the WIP and chat is an hour and 10 minutes long, so I'm sure you guys are sick of hearing me anyway. But I did end up finishing my section. It looks even better on camera. But I just wanted to say, if you guys like the way this camera quality and audio quality is, let me know in the comments, because I would be able to film my WIP and chats on my webcam, and it'd probably be a lot easier to just have it towards my computer, and I wouldn't have to worry about running out of storage, going and deleting things, going and transferring things, and that way the WIP and chat can be a little more cohesive. I'm still learning and figuring out the bugs for that type of thing. And if I were to go live, it would be on this anyway, or maybe I should invest in a webcam, I don't know. But, you know, here's how the diamond painting would look on this camera, and how myself would look on this camera, and how myself would sound. So if you enjoy this, I will just switch to filming my WIP and chats or my longer videos on my laptop instead, so that things can go smoother and it wouldn't be as choppy. So yeah, let me know. But thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you guys being there. If you want, you can go ahead and sting that like and subscribe button, become a member of my hive, be one of my honeybees, and I'll see you next time. Bye.